Good evening, Facebook friends. It's me, Nathan. Hope you guys are having a good evening here, relaxing at home, hopefully with your families. Um, just wanted to spend a few minutes with you and share my thoughts on the situation that's developed in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with the what has heretofore been a cold civil war now going hot. I'm sure many of you guys have been following this story that's been developing through the week here. I've been doing a fair bit of reading on this, trying to familiarize myself with the situation and the backgrounds of some of the people involved. Like so many of these other incidents that we've seen around the country, these BLM and Antifa militants, terrorists, communist revolutionaries seem to be pretty well equipped, pretty well coordinated. They seem to use the same tactics from one city to the next. It's pretty obvious to me that they are being coached on tactics, techniques for conducting these riots, these terrorist operations that they're performing all over the country. I believe in an effort to destabilize our country, to impact the upcoming election. Excuse me. I think that's pretty clear that that is the goal of all of these efforts. These are not grassroots, homegrown protests. I hate the word protest. I hate that they call these terrorist attacks protests. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's nothing peaceful about any of these actions. They're going out to towns like Kenosha, which is a small, it's a small city. It's nothing like Chicago or Detroit or even Milwaukee. It's a small town, and they've gone and basically smashed up, burnt up the downtown over there. They've destroyed people's businesses. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs as a result of this. And it's all over this Mr. Blake, who was shot in the back. And this was an individual who had quite a long rap sheet. Had a history of, weapons charges and violence in his past. And now we find out that he was reaching for a knife in his car when the cop shot him. So more information's leaking out. I mean, this incident that purportedly sparked all these spontaneous protests. This guy was no innocent victim. That's, right off the bat. Nobody waited to find out any of the facts, of course. The minute this was reported, within a matter of just a few hours, BLM and Antifa were on site wreaking havoc. And that's going to be the MO around the country, wherever it could be my town, it could be your town, wherever the next incident happens. It's obviously it's only going to happen if it's a black person who is shot by a white police officer. That's the type of incident I'm talking about. The other way around isn't going to. If it's a black police officer shooting a white man, that's not going to work. But if it's the other way around, yeah, you could have the same thing in your town next. And I guess the reason I wanted to talk to all of you out there about this is when you look at what has happened over the past several days and you extrapolate that out to the future, it's pretty easy to see that there's not going to be anywhere to run from this. They're going to continue to do this all over the country. And there's a good chance that you'll be dealing with it in your community soon. So, in the past, unfortunately, many people on the Patriot side or conservative side, as it's often called, have taken kind of a head in the sand approach, or not in my backyard, not my circus, not my monkeys. Well, I know, speaking personally for me, it's just across the pond right now, because I'm in West Michigan, and this is on the other coast of Lake Michigan, so it's getting very close to me, and I'm very aware that this could be my city next, where this is happening. And I mean, the impact of this type of thing is huge. And those of us in Michigan know, because we've had massive riots in the city of Detroit in 1967. There were massive riots. They had to call in the National Guard to quell those riots. Lots of people were injured, killed, lots of property destroyed, businesses destroyed. And the city never really, in the ensuing 50 years, the city of Detroit really didn't ever fully recover from that. I mean, the impact of this kind of terrorism that's coming from the left in this country, it's a big frickin' deal. And if you live in one of these areas, it's probably going to have a significant impact on your life or your family's life. With, the loss of jobs and economic opportunity for years. I mean, this is going to go on for years. Minneapolis, they're screwed. Those people are screwed up there, because the businesses are not going to come back. They're not going to want to deal with this BS anymore. They're going to pack up and they're going to get out, because it's not worth it. You can't blame them. Yep, you're right, Mike. Mike Schindel, he lived down there. He'll tell you. Detroit never fully recovered from it. So these terrorist attacks from the communist movement in this country are hurting. They're hurting especially people in inner cities. They're the ones that get hurt the most, but also the middle class. Middle class business owners and workers are being hurt as part of this too. So, the limousine liberals could give a shit less. They don't care. What the hell do they care? If their job is in government or academia, they don't give a shit. They live in their gated communities, and in the safe areas outside of these towns. Sometimes with private security even. They're safe. They don't have to deal with the devastation that follows from these terrorist attacks. But people like you and I do have to deal with it. Yeah, you're right, Amanda. Detroit, many parts of it still do look like the third world, and so does Minneapolis now. If you Google it and you look at the aftermath, the burnout stores and malls and, restaurant shops down there. It looks like Baghdad down there. And it's not going to be a quick road back from that. It's not. And the same thing in Kenosha. They're going to be dealing with this for years. And these are people's lives, people's families that are being destroyed. And yet the lying press, the corrupt communist media in this country continues to lie about this. They don't show you the footage. They won't show you the pictures of the destroyed main streets in these cities and towns. They're lying to all of us. They keep calling these people peaceful protesters. My ass. These are violent communist foot soldiers. They're the same thing. If you know your history, they're the same thing as the brown shirts, the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. It's the same tactics with their terror and intimidation campaigns, and the lying media continues to cover for them, calling them peaceful protesters, lying to everyone in America about who these people are. And at this point, I've got to agree with President Trump when he says the media is the enemy of the people. They are the enemy of the people, at least the common people in this country. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, all these people, they're all doing it. They're all deliberately refusing to cover what is going on around this country right now. And it's a big frickin' deal. It's a big frickin' deal. And, I've talked in the past about the cold Civil War in this country. Well, it just went hot. It just went hot this past week. And, the escalation, as usual, came from the left. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the shooting that happened, a couple days ago here, involving 3 BLM protesters and 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse of Illinois, who was there. He was there because he wanted to protect property. They've got footage of him talking about the reason why he was there. He was actually interviewed before the incident. He's somebody who aspires to be a police officer. He's a big Blue Lives Matter supporter. Seems to be a pretty clean-cut young man from everything I've seen. But that's why he was there. And unfortunately, he was in an area, he was off by himself, and he was assaulted by these BLM protesters, these so-called peaceful protesters. They chased him down, knocked him over, assaulted him with a skateboard, and fortunately, Mr. Rittenhouse had an AR-15 rifle with him, and he shot those dirtbags. And I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did, because from the videos, I watched the videos, and I urge each of you, watch the videos and judge for yourself and think about what you would have done in that situation. I'm surprised he had the composure to do what he did, honestly, at his age. It's hard for a lot of grown people to take a life or to wound somebody with a firearm. But that young man had the composure to do what he needed to do to save his own life. It was self-defense. And it's pretty cut and dried if you watch the video footage. He was trying to get out of there. He was running from these people, and they ran him down. They knocked him off his feet. And one of them, one of the guys, the guy with the hat that said paramedic on it, which was a lie. He's not a first responder. He had a Glock handgun too. He had that gun ready to go. So had he not reacted as quick as he did, there's a good chance that Kyle Rittenhouse would be dead right now. But thankfully he did. And now, 2 dirt bags are dead, 2 communist dirt bags with long criminal records. We're starting to learn more about the history of these guys. One was a child molester. The other one, the younger guy, had a history of domestic abuse charges. These are violent criminals that the left is recruiting and using as foot soldiers in BLM and Antifa. I don't think those guys are special, do you? I think they want people like that in their organization. And you're right, Mike. It could have been any of the young people in the Patriot movement. I've met a lot of passionate young men and women who love their country, want to defend their country, as Kyle Rittenhouse did. And he did what he had to do. And I'm sure he's going to have to live with that the rest of his life, regardless. I mean, that's not an easy thing for anybody to live with. I'm glad he did it. And I think it was the right thing to do. But now, after everything that he's been through, to have the sheriff out there in Kenosha County and the district attorney pile on him, he's been charged with everything from A to Z. Couple counts of first-degree murder, weapons charges. I mean, they piled everything on this kid. They absolutely threw the book at him. And what's interesting about that is how quick they were to snatch him up and pile on all these charges. And yet, how many of these criminals, these piece of shit Antifa and BLM thugs that we see out there on social media every now, how many of them are we seeing charged? How many of them are we seeing locked up? I'm not seeing very many. I don't even think those guys that were brandishing ARs in Lansing several weeks back, I don't think they ever got charged with anything. They seem to be able to do whatever they want to do with impunity, and these district attorneys, these sheriffs, are looking the other way when they have a duty to enforce the law. It's absolutely ridiculous. The double standard that we're seeing out there, it's total bullshit. It's total bullshit, and it's got to be stopped. We need to put a stop to it. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate the support, man. I'm fed up, and I'm very I'm very angry about this because they want to make an example out of that young man. They want to make an example out of him for a very good reason. And the reason is, excuse me, the reason is because they want to deter all of you out there in small town, rural America. They want to deter all of you from standing up and defending your neighborhoods and your communities for fear that you will end up in the same position as Kyle Rittenhouse. That's why this district attorney and the left-wing media, that's why they're doing this, conducting this campaign to destroy this kid's life. And that can't be allowed to happen. That can't be allowed to happen. We've got to come to his aid. We have got to have his back, because each of us would want the same if we were in that position. He just happened to be the first person. It's funny that it happened to be a young man like that, somebody that young, that ended up firing the first shots in this whole thing. But he's probably about the same age as a lot of the original American militia were, that defended their villages in colonial times against the British too. You got to give the kid a lot of credit for his courage. For the bravery that he showed, and he went there for a noble reason. You can say, well, he shouldn't have been there because he crossed the state line. I understand that. He lived about 20 miles away from Kenosha, so it was over a state line, but it was also, it was a nearby town. He may have had friends there for all we know. And he felt like he needed to take a stand. He needed to be there to protect property from these thugs. So he didn't go there. He didn't go there wanting to kill people. He didn't go there because he had some bloodlust, or he was a racist. He hated black people or brown people. That is bullshit. It's infuriating that that's what we're being told every night by the mainstream media. They're already calling him white supremacist. He's being called cop sympathizer. He's being called militia member, because, you and I both know they're going to continue to demonize the American militia, even though the militia is sanctioned by our Constitution. It's our right, and it's been here ever since the founding of this country. But you can see why they want to demonize it, because they want to intimidate all of us from standing up when this bullshit comes to our town. That's their motive with doing this. So they're going to flood the zone with all their bullshit propaganda. They're going to tear this kid apart, and the media try to destroy his life, destroy his reputation. Make an example of him, so that the rest of us will think twice, basically, before we choose to stand up when this stuff comes to our town or our city. And we've we've got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do because, yeah, you're right, Tommy. Don't let their bullshit propaganda intimidate you. Don't believe the lies. Okay, this kid, I guarantee you, this kid has massive support around this country, and they're trying to keep him from raising any funds. There was a fundraiser on Fundly earlier today. I saw it. It was already over $50,000. Fundly has shut that down. GoFundMe has shut down fundraisers for this young man. But the good news is that Nick Sandman's lawyer, Lynn Wood, he's one of the best lawyers in the country. And I just heard that he has agreed to take Kyle's case on pro bono, absolutely free. So, there's still good people out there in this country. And all of us in the Patriot movement, we've got a lot of good people here. And we need to help this young man. We need to help him so that he can heal, so that he can go on with his life. He doesn't deserve this. Not in any way, shape, or form does he deserve to be treated this way. And at some point, the media in this country need to be held accountable for their part in fomenting this communist revolution that's going on right now, that is destroying. It's more than property that's being destroyed. They like to say it's property, it can be replaced. The insurance company will pay for it. No, it doesn't work that way. It's not just property. It's people's lives are being destroyed right now because of the communist left in this country. And I don't know about all of you, but for me, this just really makes me even more committed, even more resolved to doing whatever it takes to stand up and resist the communist movement in this country. I mean, if we put our heads in the sand and hope that it's all going to blow over, what is that going to accomplish? We know what that's going to accomplish. We'll wake up and we will live in a communist country, and we will be oppressed every single day and worried about the thought police, worried about losing our jobs, our livelihoods. I don't want to live like that. And I know none of you want that either. So things have gone to a new level now. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Joseph. It is a civil war. It's an early stage of it there, where you have little tit for tat skirmishes. I'm worried with these people as sick as they are. You've got to worry about what's going to happen at the next incident, because unlike people like Kyle Rittenhouse, who have principles, who have values, on the left, the only value that they have is the pursuit of power, is the only thing that they are driven by. I mean, is rage and hate and greed. So there's no low that these people won't stoop to. So I worry about them seeking to, exact some kind of retribution on somebody. That they would pick somebody Probably a white person, unfortunately, because you know, that's the narrative that they've been pushing out there, as the white devils and white people are all racist, that they will take their rage out on somebody, in retribution for these two pieces of garbage that were dispatched the other night in Kenosha. I could totally see that happening. So I'm going to tell all of you, you keep your families, your kids close to you. Don't take any unnecessary risks. If you hear of an incident that happens in your town, you need to batten down the hatches, because they will be headed your way, and you don't want your family out in the middle of this. Now, those of us who are physically able, who are trained, who have the heart for this fight, and who want to go out and defend our communities and are able to do that, that's awesome. Go out and do that, but don't take any chances with your families, with your kids around these people, because they do not care. They do not care. And I would hate to see any of your family members hurt by this scum, to send a message to terrorize those of us in the patriot community, because they would do it. I know they would do it. They were going to murder this young man in the street, who wasn't threatening them. He wasn't attacking them, but they would have blown his brains out right in the middle of the street, and they wouldn't lose any sleep over it, because a large proportion of BLM and Antifa shock troops are hardened criminals like these guys. They are, and Art, I know because you know these type of people, and you know what they're capable of. And if you're going to go up against these people, you can't trust them. You can't give them an inch, because they have they don't have any moral compass. They're not going to have any remorse about whatever they do to you, because they unfortunately, they're people that have given themselves over to a lifestyle of hatred, of blaming others for whatever misfortunes they've had in life, and greed too. I mean, some of them want to steal, some of them want to take what other people have, take things that they have not earned. That's part of it too. But it's a pretty virulent concoction out there, and I would wager that hardened violent criminals are a good percentage of the left shock troops out there. So you need to be ready for anything. If you go out to defend your neighborhood and your community, don't trust anybody. You need to have your head on a swivel. You need to have extreme situational awareness, because it's basically, just figure you're going into Baghdad or you're going into Mogadishu, because that's what they're turning our American cities into. Hey, Jake. Glad you could join us, man. Jake's a veteran, so he knows. Veterans know what this is. Our friends and neighbors who spent time in Iraq and Afghanistan know what this kind of shit looks like. But it's unfamiliar to those of us who've only lived stateside, because we've I mean, we've had peace and prosperity for decades. So this is something completely new. It's alien to us. Unless it's something that you've studied or you've experienced personally, this is a totally new dynamic for most Americans. But those of us on the right and the patriot movement, we need to get up to speed real fast here to prevent more death or injury on our side from, unnecessary risk taking, from there shouldn't be any kind of, if you go out there should not be any kind of hot dogging, showing off for the camera, any of that, because some of these people on the left seem to think that this is a frickin' game out there. Like this is, Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. Well, you don't get another life in this game. You get one, and once you're killed or maimed out there, that's it. So I honestly think a lot of them are hopped up on drugs, for one. I think that there's a lot of drug use. I think these people get hopped up on, not just marijuana, probably methamphetamine, heroin, and before they go out on these, on their mission of terror, to go and burn and loot and smash and beat their way through these communities. So you're basically dealing with somebody who has the mentality of a wild animal at that point, and it was evident from the way that they were running after Kyle Rittenhouse. They knew that he had the AR-15. That was easy to see. They ran after him anyway. I don't know if they were thinking that he would not use it, but those two guys that were chasing after him, they looked to me like they were on something. I would be very surprised if they were not on some sort of street drugs, because, I mean, a sober person usually is not going to try to run somebody down that's armed with an AR-15 and hope that they're not going to use it. So these people are like, they're like lunatics who are hopped up on these drugs, and they're just rampaging. They're going on a bloodlust like this. So you kind of have to try to, I guess you can't do it completely, but try to put yourself in that mentality and try to see the situation the way that they see it, and then prepare yourself, conduct yourself accordingly. And I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if these people, with what's been going on in Portland and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if they start using leftist women to go out there and either to serve as decoys, to, stand out in the street and cry for help, to pretend that they're injured or they need help, to play with the emotions of men on the patriot side, to draw them in, and then they'll be ambushed and probably end up gravely injured or killed at that point. Because that's exactly the kind of thing that the left will do. Because they don't have any honor, they don't have any morals. It's all about winning and getting power at any cost, by any means necessary. And we saw that with this other gentleman with the paramedic hat. He's pretending he's a first responder out there when really he was He was an armed thug who was out there to wreak havoc on that small town. Yep, you're right, Tommy. It is. It's straight up brainwashing, and it's worked very well on these people. And I'm not saying that there aren't peaceful protesters out there, but these elements, these BLM and Antifa elements, you guys got to know just how far gone these people are. I mean, you have to kind of compare them to ISIS, honestly. They are, they're so far removed from, the average person's mindset. It's hard to, it's hard to describe. But I think we need to have these discussions because this is coming, and it's coming at us like a freight train at 90 miles an hour. And none of us knows, we could wake up tomorrow and the next incident has occurred and it's our town, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Especially if you're in a town where you've got a liberal mayor, police chief, sheriff, whatever, who is going to stand down. They're going to have law enforcement stand down so these people can wreak havoc and tear up your town. I think at that point, those people have betrayed their oaths of office, and that's when brave men and women in these communities have every right and have a duty to stand up and protect their neighborhoods and communities from dirtbags like this. And if those people choose to behave the way that these people did, that assaulted Kyle Rittenhouse, and they get capped, I'm not going to shed a tear for them. And there's no way that those people who are defending lives and property should be brought up on charges for doing that. People that are doing that are heroes in my book. So, really, they shouldn't have to do it. I mean, law enforcement, or at the least, the state National Guard where you are should be taking care of that. So, so that civilian men and women don't have to do it. But I mean, rest assured, there's a lot of veterans out there. There's a lot of retired law enforcement, corrections officers out there. A lot of pretty tough men and women who are on the patriot side, and they're not going to sit by while their towns are burned, looted, while innocent people are terrorized and beaten, and not respond to it. And I don't care what the left-wing media has to say. To hell with them. They can say whatever they want to say, but they're not gonna deter these people from defending their neighborhoods and communities. It's just not going to happen. I've met a lot of people in Michigan like that who've said, "Hey, when the time comes, I'm going to be there and I'm going to defend my neighborhood and my community." And what could be more American than that, guys? Really? I mean, isn't that really what the founding fathers were doing? So we have clarity on that. We understand what's happening, that there are groups, and I'm telling you guys that probably some of these groups, Antifa and BLM, some of these groups are probably getting funding from other countries like communist China, because as they destabilize the United States, that inures to the benefit of our enemies abroad. Foremost among them is the Chinese Communist Party, and also the Iranian government, the North Korean government, which is communist. I mean, if you don't think that our enemies abroad would do that, you're crazy. They they will do whatever they can to advance their interests. And the Chi-Coms, they want Joe Biden elected. They want Joe Biden in the White House. Our intelligence agencies have already produced reports stating just that. So keep that in mind too, that this, as much as we have to defend against domestic enemies, there's also foreign enemies that are involved in this shit right now, because they smell blood. The United States is weakened, our economy's weakened. We're dealing with the coronavirus bullshit. That's another gift from the Chi-Coms. Look at the bigger picture and how these riots, these left-wing terrorist attacks fit into that bigger picture. And it all starts to make sense. I don't know, none of us knows for sure what the next step is going to be, but if you are an American patriot, if you love this country, if you love your state, your community, if you love your family, those of you who are of sound body and mind, and you've got the heart to take a stand, you need to be squared away physically, but also mentally, and understand what is happening, what the stakes are, and what kind of role you can play in all this, because it may come to that. I mean, I hope President Trump sends in the feds. I hope they send in the U.S. Marshals, the National Guard. I hope they start rolling some of these shit bags up. I'd love to see him restore order. I'd love to see him win re-election, and see some of the leaders of these groups held accountable and sent to federal prison where they belong. And I'd like to see the media held accountable for their role in inciting violence and riots. I hope that's the way that it goes. But there's a greater chance than there's ever been in my lifetime, and probably yours, that prepared, resolute American citizens will have to stand up for their rights and defend their liberty and their property from communist foot soldiers who are trying to spread the red terror across our nation. So, just some things to think about, guys. I don't want to keep you guys up all night here, but yeah, I'm gonna keep speaking out as much as I can. I'm gonna probably send a donation here. I don't have a whole lot to donate, but I'm gonna slide a few bucks to Kyle Rittenhouse. Some way. I'll find a way. And if I find a good link, I'll share it on my page, guys, because we need to help that young man out. He's, he might go down in history someday for having been the one to fire the first shots in, the Second American Civil War, which is what this looks to be shaping up to be. But we owe it to him to have his back, to help him out like we would with any of our own here. And God bless him. I mean, I can't imagine what he's going through right now at that age, and with the full power of the state of Wisconsin, arrayed against him. It's got to be so tough. But let's keep him in our prayers. Let's try to help him financially, and don't put up with the left-wing propaganda either. When you see people sharing these articles trying to smear him, we can counter that too. We can flood the zone with the truth about who he is and what he was doing there. That's the least we can do to counter the left-wing bullshit propaganda. So if each of us does what we can win this thing. We can help Kyle, and we can go on to victory. So hope all of you stay safe. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.